A lone light flickers in the marsh. You follow it, drawn deeper into the mist. It dances, always just ahead, promising safety, warmth, or guidance. But it is no lantern. It is no friend. It is a will-o'-the-wisp, a ghostly flame luring travelers to their doom. Centuries later, that same flame glows inside a carved face on your doorstep, a pumpkin grinning in the October dark. It warns, it welcomes, it frightens, and it delights. The jack-o'-lantern is born of marsh fire and myth, of devils and tricksters, of old world and new. And tonight, on this podcast, we'll follow its light back to the beginning. I am Gregory Hallows, and this is Preserve Halloween Podcast. So on this episode, we're going to explore the history of Halloween's most iconic symbol, or at least one of them, the jack-o'-lantern, from the ghostly flames of the bog to the carved turnips of Ireland, from the devil's bargain of Stingy Jack to the glowing pumpkins of modern America. The jack-o'-lantern is more than decoration. It is a mask, a warning, and a beacon for the dead. And in its flame, we see the history and the story of Halloween itself. So, long before pumpkins, long before October 31st, there were the lights in the swamps. They were called will-o'-the-wisp or ignis fatuus, which means the fool's fire. These ghostly flames appeared in bogs and marshes, flickering above the ground at night. Travelers feared them, for they seemed to guide the lost deeper into danger. Now, before I go a little bit further, I have my own story of an odd light history. I used to live in Florida, and there was always this story about the Ghost Light Road, right? So one high school night, I gathered a bunch of my friends. We all went down to this road, and the story goes, you go to where the paved road meets the dirt road, and just as your front tires of your car touch the dirt road, you stop and you start flicking your lights, like your high beams, low beams, high beams, low beams, right? And then all of a sudden, a light will flash back at you. And then if things go right or wrong, depending on your perspective, this light will come towards you at a rapid pace, and it's a ghost of a guy who was riding down that road on his motorcycle. He was pulled over by the KKK, and they chopped his head off. And this is the guy traveling all around this road looking for his head. So you're seeing his headlight of his motorcycle. The first time I went and did this, nothing really happened. I mean, me and my friends had a great time, and but nothing really happened. Then I went with one of my relatives, I believe my uncle, and we did the same process. I think we might have seen it the first time, I don't know, but the second time we definitely saw it, and my uncle was nuts, and he drove towards the light, and then it passed through our car and onto the other side. But we ended up going to the end of this road, and it was a highway on the other side, so we never figured out if it was like a weird reflection or whatever. Take it as you may, but that was my encounter, or one of my encounters with a crazy, I don't know, definitely wasn't a will-o'-the-wisp, but it was related to the story in some ways because of the light. So I just want to interject with that. It totally has nothing to do with this podcast, but I thought it'd be a fun story to share. So folklore across Europe explained these lights as souls of the damned. In Ireland, they were known as puka lights. In Scandinavia, they were spirits of unbaptized children. In England, they were jack-o'-lanterns, literally Jack of the Lantern, and this was a wandering trickster soul carrying a cursed light. So we start to see the, Halloween lantern taking shape. There was a flame, there was a trick, a guide to the underworld, otherworld, whatever you want to call it. So one of the most famous stories, and I've told this story before, I've at least mentioned it, I think, is an Irish legend of a guy named Stingy Jack. He was a drunk. He was not a good dude. He was miserable. miserly, but somehow was very smart. He tricked the devil twice. Not once, but actually twice. First, he convinced the devil to climb a tree, and then he trapped him there with a cross carved into the bark. Later, he tricked him again with a coin, but every time the devil tried to get him, he would win. Read more into the story because I'm just going to briefly summarize it. Stingy Jack's story is awesome. When Jack died, heaven would not take him, and hell was still upset that he tricked the devil, so they would not let him in hell either. So he was cast out to, purgatory, basically. He was only given a burning coal to light his way. So he carved out a turnip, stuck this coal into it, lit it up, and wandered the earth ever since. He was a lost soul. He was a Jack of the Lantern. So that's where that comes from, Jack-o'-lantern, Stingy Jack. So this short, brief, history of Stingy Jack explains not just the name of Jack-o'-lantern, but the practice of carving a vegetable into a lantern to mimic Jack's eternal light. So originally it was turnips, but eventually became pumpkins, which the turnip, if you've ever seen it, I've got a picture of one somewhere, but if you've ever seen a carved turnip, they're scary. So in Ireland and Scotland, originally people carved out faces into turnips, rutabagas, beets. These root vegetables were lit with coals and candles. Some were meant to represent Jack himself. Others were used as protection. They were supposed to ward off spirits wandering on Hallows Eve when the veil was thin, and that's where dressing up came from too. So imagine this. Look up after or during this podcast, I don't care. Look up a carved turnip online, and it's scary. I'm telling you. Jagged teeth, grimacing, glows in the dark because of the light. They're a lot smaller than pumpkins that we carve today, but they're just creepier, right? They would hang these in windows, set them on fences. They were carried by the people doing the guising as they went from house to house. So this face in the lantern became a symbol of, frightening away evil, or, maybe it's embodying evil. Who knows, right? So when the Irish and the Scottish immigrants made their way to America in the 19th century, they brought a lot of their traditions with them. But the thing that they weren't expecting in the New World, they found something better than carving a turnip. They found a pumpkin. These were native to America, and they're a lot easier to carve because they're bigger. They're already associated with the harvest. So that makes it easy. The history and the tradition stays the same. So the carved turnip became the carved pumpkin. This face of a carved pumpkin soon would be seen on covers of magazines and folk art, postcards. Jack-o'-lantern became the symbol of Halloween, right? By the late 1800s, jack-o'-lantern was no longer just an Irish thing. It was an American thing, and it was everywhere. So, why did they carve a face into it? Whether it's a turnip or rutabaga or whatever, why was a face carved, and why didn't they just, do a lantern? But the face was a crucial element in this whole process because it turned the pumpkin or the, whatever into a mask. It became this pumpkin or turnip or whatever became a mask for the spirit world. And on Halloween, when the dead return, the jack-o'-lantern greets them with a grin. Some say it scares them away. Others say it welcomes them to our world. Like costumes and masks, though, the thought process was it would be confusing to the spirits and make them unsure of who belongs among the living and who doesn't, and kind of blend in so they can't, get you. So again, like most of these stories I've been telling, this time frame just reminded us about death, and the dead are watching us, and what are we going to do to protect ourselves? So we carve pumpkins, right? Or dress up. So by the early 20th century, jack-o'-lanterns became a staple of Halloween parties. Children carved them at schools. Families displayed them on their porch. They became the subject of postcards. Halloween postcards, like I've mentioned before, were a huge thing back in the day. They were often paired with witches, black cats, and bats, which are some of the other iconic symbols of Halloween, of course. But the pumpkin face basically was the symbol of Halloween. Newspapers would run contests for the best carving. Whoever had the best carved jack-o'-lantern, we still do that now. Candy ads used pumpkins as their mascots. It just became tied to Halloween. And it became the symbol, right? So, but the jack-o'-lantern was not always a friendly thing. In some towns, carved pumpkins were used in pranks. They were lit and placed in graveyards, left on doorsteps to scare neighbors. Teenagers would carry them on mischief night as props for their tricks that they no treats. They just did tricks. This mischievous side was part of Halloween's duality. It's fun and fear. It's trick and treat. The jack-o'-lantern, like Stingy Jack, is a trickster, right? It's always grinning, always laughing, never quite trusting of a jack-o'-lantern because he always looks like he's got something like nefarious going on in his head. But the jack-o'-lantern is about lighting the dark. On Samhain, fires were lit to guide souls. On Halloween, candles and pumpkins continue that. They remind us that the boundary is thin between the living and the dead, but not impassable, and to remind us that the dead are always near us, but the living can endure. The living will go on until it's their turn to be dead, right? The flickering flame in the carved face is a message across centuries. We see the dead and they see us. So now think about how, jack-o'-lanterns and carvings and all that. They're huge. They're crazily elaborate, right? There's these pumpkin carvers that can make anything. Like people use Dremels now to carve pumpkins. It's not just that, dollar little set you buy at the, drugstore. Now people are making pumpkin carving a career. And there's shows every, holiday season with all these amazing carved pumpkins, right? I like to do simple things. I always have fun with carving a pumpkin, but I always try to think about something odd and different, but also it has to be feasible, because once you get carving a pumpkin, all of a sudden you can just have a giant hole. So I've seen haunted houses, movie characters, symbols. I still love just the basic classic jack-o'-lantern face. And I love seeing them lined up and down the neighborhood. But there's these huge competitions for pumpkin carving all over the country. But even though on the outside it may look different, the tradition pretty much stays the same. You stick a candle in a pumpkin or a light or some kind of something to remind us of Stingy Jack, his curse, and the magic of Halloween, because it's still magical, right? So that's a little brief history of jack-o'-lantern. I've done podcasts on pumpkins before, but I wanted to, it's October finally, so I wanted to make sure the first podcast of the month was back to the basics. I've been talking about other folklore and things like that, and that was really fun, but I wanted to make sure this month I concentrate and tackle the basics of Halloween and back to the roots, right? So where am I going to go next for the next episode? Maybe trick-or-treating? Would that be fun? So you got your jack-o'-lantern sitting there on your porch watching everything. And then the trick-or-treater comes, knocks on the door, and that's the give and take of Halloween. That's the yin and the yang. That's the tradition of, basically the dialogue of the night. The dead's there at your threshold, and the living in the house offers the tributes, right? So It's so much fun. I love doing this. So the next time you light a pumpkin and set it outside, remember, you're not just carving a decoration. You're continuing a ritual that stretches back to bog lights and the will of the wisp, to wandering souls, to a trickster named Jack who outsmarted the devil but could not outsmart death. Until next time, stay strange, stay curious, stay spooky, and always preserve Halloween.